Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the Behind Company Lines podcast. Today we have Julian Edelson, CEO and co-founder of TradeZing. TradeZing is a platform that aggregates real-time information from financial professionals, data sources, social media, and the creator community to help people learn about the current economic landscape. Jordan, I'm so excited to chat with you, not only because of your experience as an entrepreneur, but also, what you're working on at TradeZing, the such kind of interesting phenomenon around communities and how important those are, especially to Web3 and even just like as more people are getting introduced to investment and what that means, we're more and more kind of leaning on our peers. And it's kind of exciting to see who's kind of come out ahead in terms of the information and how you're spreading that information. But before we get into all that good stuff with TradeZing, what were you doing before you started the company?
Yeah. So thanks for having me. First off, I have an interesting background. I actually started as an entrepreneur when I was in my teens. I was actually 14 when I was a self-taught programmer, and I used to create what we call mods back in the day, mods of different games. Actually, specifically back then was the Half-Life engine, and I was creating different mods. I had a couple big hits and successes, and then I moved on. I created a company that actually broadcasted esports tournaments. So pretty much what Twitch TV is today, I was doing that 20 plus years ago. So a little early, and I was running that company for about 8 years, and we broadcasted video game tournaments all over the country. I like to think I was responsible for a lot of this esports relevance you see today and a lot of matching up of brands with different gamers and stuff like that. But I was there very, very early in the esports space. And then I became the CTO of the first publicly traded hip hop company. So I worked with Russell Simmons and Dr. Benjamin Chavis, and we opened up hip hop themed restaurants, which was pretty cool. And my connection to that whole world was we actually integrated Xboxes into the tabletop. So when you waited for your food, you'd be able to play games. The venues turned into nightclubs. It was a pretty cool setup. I brought on Microsoft as a partner in that business and Viacom, and we were producing a lot of different game broadcasts from that facility and stuff like that. So I did that for about 3 years. And then in addition to that, then I moved on. I started a mobile digital agency, one of the first ones actually in the country. It's called Appetizer Mobile. And I built, so far Appetizer actually been around for 14 years now. And I built over 400 mobile applications for different celebrities, major brands, Fortune 500 companies, a little bit of everything. And some celebrities and notables would be like Lady Gaga, 50 Cent, Kim Kardashian, a whole bunch of big people. I had the highest grossing educational apps in the App Store. And my agency was the only firm that actually received direct praise from Steve Jobs while he was still away. And he actually emailed us and asked us if Apple could do anything to help my company out with some of the products we were building. We asked for an iPad TV commercial, and sure enough, we were granted that just a couple months later. So very, very cool accolade in the app space. And then that kind of led me into what I'm doing today with TradeZing and some other companies that I'm involved in.
It's so amazing to think of how you're able to capture attention in kind of all the ventures that you've done. It's what in your mind really draws people to, whether it's a game or an application, something that is exciting or interesting, and how have you been able to identify what people are capturing? Kind of almost right. You seem to find this trend right before things are trending, which I think is a good thing. But right before that, kind of what cue or what signals do you see to kind of help cue to what's going to be popular?
Yeah, I've always been very early with a lot of ideas. I've always been an idea person, and not always has my ideas haven't always co-aligned with infrastructure. So back, for example, when I was doing the eSportsTV, we were originally actually doing an audio cast called Shoutcast over Winamp. And then we were the first ones to pioneer actually streaming the video aspect of esports to the web. But we were early. And at that time, people were lucky enough they had a DSL connection. A lot of people still have 56K modems and T1s and stuff like that were kind of the fastest internet speeds. So it was very early. But again, in terms of just the principle of it all, it's being creative, looking for innovative concepts that ultimately save people either time or kind of improve the overall experience. And again, I'm always looking at like the experience, really the end user experience with whatever kind of I'm coming up or how I'm ideating. How is it going to improve their lives and make their lives that much better or make it simpler and stuff like that? And again, that you ultimately leads into engagement, and that's how you build eventually kind of a successful property.
Yeah. And how do you define kind of something that's, say, trending or something that's actually going to be around for a long time? Like esports broadcasting, who would have known that it would be a huge community of people and it'd grow in popularity, but there's other things that say aren't as maybe trending for a certain amount of time. We think about that in fashion, but what in particular kind of helps you key an eye for what's going to be increasing in value versus something that's just popular now, but we'll throw away in X amount of time?
Yeah, a lot of it is just kind of taking a look at consumer sentiment and seeing in different industries. Again, that could be a fashion, it could be gaming. Again, I'll use the gaming one as an example. Just taking a look at the gaming industry and understanding there was just a big range around at least mods back in the day for me. And a lot of people had kind of like built out these underground communities. I saw a lot of chatter around esports, specifically how people were using like IRC for communicating around different esports, or they're doing kind of different matchups themselves. So kind of taking kind of these raw elements and combining them and making them to something bigger and kind of powering those efforts. But it all starts with kind of community as the basis, just seeing that there's an appetite there. And that's where I like to kind of invest and spend my time.
Yeah. And thinking about the community aspect and getting people attention, getting people to use something, and then keeping those people around and keeping that engagement high is a challenge, especially when, like, for Clubhouse is kind of the marquee example, and maybe I'll have them on the show, maybe I won't, who knows? But, they got a lot of users, it was a huge buzz, they got a lot of investment, and then it was like this weird inability to not only retain people, but also monetize on the platform, being that it's hard to kind of capture people and continue to capture them consistently over time. How have you been able to do that with people's attention becoming increasingly more challenging to keep?
Yeah. I think the trick is timing is everything. So breaking while the iron's hot type of mentality. Clubhouse, for example, had a certain window. They kind of piggyback off of kind of the COVID trend being kind of an outlet for people to communicate and be creative. So they had that as an opportunity. But again, one of their downsides or failures is that they kind of kept themselves in kind of in this invite mode only for, I think, a little too long. I think they should have opened it up a little bit quicker, gotten out there to more people, and really kind of cemented their position. Instead, they kind of skirted it a bit. And I think also with Clubhouse, they didn't really know, I think, going into it, really what they had. I think they kind of undervalued themselves in that respect. And they saw kind of a community shift. And then they also turned on monetization a little too late. So it's kind of a lot of small things kind of went wrong for Clubhouse, even though as a platform, it's pretty solid. Beyond that, then it's the copycat effect. So once everyone saw that Clubhouse, these audio rooms were super exciting and had potential, every platform out there decided to go ahead and create
Twitter
an
did
audio
one.
room. So Twitter, LinkedIn, Spotify, they all had them, and then some of them are actually closing down. So again, it's just it's kind of a moment in time, and again, they had their window, and unfortunately, I think their chances passed.
Yeah. And within that timing, what are some key things that you look at? Is it like user engagement increasing to a certain amount, and you kind of shift into focusing on what a certain segment of those users, like the consistent user base, is caring about, and double down and investing in that part of the technology? Like, what are those signals that you see that kind of help you kind of define when the timing is right, or kind of, I guess, measure the temperature in the air?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of entrepreneurs don't like to hear this, but a lot of it is just luck, right place, right time with a lot of this stuff. It's what it comes down to. For them, a lot of the signals are there and the community wanted a certain thing, but by the time they realized what the community wanted, it was a little too late, because it takes time to build a lot of these features. With that said, for my products, I like to try to get something out to market relatively quickly, get user feedback, and then iterate from there forward. So we're building for a purpose instead of thinking what we want. I like to kind of operate outside of an echo chamber, because when you're in dev mode, you are in a kind of echo chamber. When you're in kind of a closed beta, still sometimes it's a little bit of an echo chamber. And then when you finally open things up, you can start to get some real world feedback. But with that said, you have to take that feedback in, but also kind of rely on leadership's knowledge and expertise to be able to kind of innovate for that next step forward, because you can't just develop and build for the present. You also have to develop for the future.
Yeah. And then shifting our focus into TradeZing, what in particular got you excited about Web3? Kind of when were you first introduced to the concept of Web3? And then obviously we'll kind of go from there, but I'm curious, when were you introduced to Web3, and what got you excited about the way it was kind of capitalizing on this whole community aspect?
Yeah, a lot of Web3, more so for me during kind of the pandemic. There's a lot more downtime to kind of like take a look and see what's the next big thing. How are people communicating now? We saw a departure from traditional forms of communication over to kind of people now leveraging VR and building kind of communities within that, and the metaverse. And these all became kind of big buzzwords. And if you were kind of in those communities, you kind of learned a lot. But I saw there was just a lot of kind of problems with the community and just in general, a lot of scams kind of riddled throughout Web3. And realizing that there was an inherent problem with the industry. And not just that, even just traditional trading. Part of the inspiration behind originally TradeZing was hearing the story about a younger individual. He's a Gen Zer who committed suicide because of bad trades he made on Robinhood. And a lot of that kind of stems on just a lack of information and guidance, and turning to these communities that sometimes are riddled with scams. So I realized there was a lack of transparency, and a lot of these platforms, whether it be Twitch or Reddit, they've been kind of, even Discord, they were kind of repurposed for Web3 and kind of for trading stuff, but they weren't really ever built for that at its core purpose. So we set forward to kind of build out a platform and a community that's really focused the content up for financial insights, and financial content.
Yeah, yeah. And how is the kind of vetting process? Like, if I'm somebody who comes to this community, maybe I had a bad experience, maybe I'm just afraid to engage with someone's content because I'm unaware and maybe haven't done enough research. But I come to TradeZing and I want to kind of gain more of I guess, a legitimate, maybe qualified take on what's either volatile, available, what should I trade in, and all this kind of financial questions that I have. How do I trust the people on the community, and how do you go through to make sure that those who are on there are giving good information are a bad act?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, you kind of trust and learn who to trust in the community by the community vetting mechanism that we have in place. So we have different tiers of creators: standard, affiliate, and partner. And those essentially that kind of work their way up and kind of achieve certain milestones within the community. They then get held kind of at a different degree or different level and a certain level of prominence across the platform itself. So again, the community is responsible for that vetting. So if they realize someone's channel, for example, is just riddled with scams, then again, they're going to get downvoted and they're going to be kind of almost to a degree blocked or kind of muted within kind of the ecosystem. But again, someone that's actually pumping out and providing valuable insights and have a lot of engagement, positive engagement behind their channel, they're going to bubble up to the top. And that's what you're going to see more on the site and also on our app.
Yeah. And what kind of mechanisms that you have kind of in the technology that allows you to kind of not have to do that manually? Obviously, alluding to some kind of artificial intelligence, maybe some machine learning kind of algorithms that you have built in, but what are some ways that you kind of create a more not only catered experience, but an experience that rewards people who make good or give good advice and make good trades and things like that?
Yeah, so the reward end of it is for our creators is that when they get up to the level of affiliate, so we have 3 different tiers. It starts with standard, affiliate, partner. So affiliate, so let's start with standard. So standard users, if they work and they hit certain key metrics, that's streamable hours, a certain amount of likes on their content, if they kind of hit those type of criteria, then they'll get invited to become an affiliate. And when they become an affiliate, they're actually invited to participate in revenue share on our platform. So the incentive there is produce good content, play by the rules, the community guidelines, and ultimately to provide value across the platform. You're going to win in that way and get incentivized through revenue share. And beyond that, those affiliates that really stand out and go that extra mile to produce really high value content on the platform, they'll then be invited through a curated process, an editorial process, invited to become a partner. And again, that rev share actually becomes even greater for them when they reach that tier. So that monetization kind of tiered system is there. That's the incentive for them. And again, the community is helping us through that purpose. Aside from that, there is kind of an AI component in terms of how our recommendation engine works and bubbling out certain content over other types of content. But again, a lot of that is still derived by what we're kind of pulling from the community as part of that. The community kind of is weighted more than kind of the AI in our platform.
Yeah, that's such a brilliant way to kind of not only keep people around, but help them improve, because I feel like with a lot of the marketplace models, it's more of transactional focus rather than kind of, it's almost using a capture score to increase your value as an individual and then go into this rev share agreement. You know, it's kind of a bold statement for a company to give to their high, I guess, not even just high output, but high quality output individuals and creators. Was that something that you thought about as a core kind of principle and philosophy of TradeZing, or is that something that came about as you kind of iterated on the product? And honestly, kudos. That's such a smart way to keep people engaged and around, because it's hard and you live and die by, I'm sure, that creator content. But yeah, was that of conception, or was that by design, or was that something you stumbled upon?
Yeah, great question. So that was actually something that was part of the original conception of it, that we wanted to reward kind of excellence on the platform, people playing by the rules, creating valuable content and insights, and really kind of creating a safe environment for this type of content. It was really important for financial content. As I said, we're trying to create a transparent, open platform that, again, we're trying to solve for a lot of these issues that, Twitter and TikTok and all these other platforms are quite honestly very riddled by. And on top of that, we've also listened to the creators and their biggest concerns on the other platforms. Their biggest complaint is discoverability. So not just are we rewarding them through the incentivization, through monetization, but also rewarding them by additional discoverability. And being that we're focused strictly kind of on finance, we eliminate all that other outside noise. You go to these other platforms, you search for finance content or something related to a specific stock or whatever, you'll be sent in 100 different directions, because that's how their algorithms are architected. They just want to capture the eyeball and keep you watching as long as possible. But they don't really care what content they're serving you as long as it's sticky. And on our platform, it's going to be sticky, educational, and relevant to what you're actually searching. And you're going to find it very, very quickly. So you'll connect to that financial insights and that intelligence, and then you'll be able to trade against that.
And man, it's brilliant to not only create that reward system as a philosophy of it, and it makes sense to kind of reinforce this good behavior. And I don't want to say good behavior, but positive behavior, this kind of growth mentality for the community as we scale it. And in terms of building trust, shifting to the other side of the marketplace, building trust with the consumers, the people who come in looking for this advice, what is obviously their buy-in is that it's a filtered community, there's vetted people in there, but how do you kind of not only continue to expand and broaden and acquire new consumers, but continue to cater through that experience, being that it's hard. We see like different apps like Webull is way more challenging to trade on than say a Robinhood because of the user interface. How do you kind of think about not only the acquisition, but also the retention and the relationship with the product?
Yeah, so where we sit actually in a really interesting position. We're trying to position ourselves as kind of a one-stop shop. You come to us kind of as a gateway point, and then you can go off and kind of on your financial adventure and journey from there on. But again, what we're building, and this is going to be, so we have our app is what's in the market right now. We have a brand new web platform that's actually launching in just about 2 weeks in conjunction with Bitcoin 2023. And then we also have our events platform that's actually rolling out right after Bitcoin. So we have these kind of three main components to it. The app's been in market right now, but again, moving into kind of our web platform, our web platform is super, super powerful. It acts as almost kind of an aggregator of sorts, pulling in from all the big platforms, all this information, and kind of helping you make sense of it through kind of social intelligence and also artificial intelligence. Super powerful. It's going to be a utility that a lot of traders are going to use. And then from there, you can kind of continue on your adventure of learning about financial content and connect over to the TradeZing app, or you can also be directed and discovering other content in the financial space that's on the web that you may have missed. So we kind of act as this gateway intro point into kind of the finance world. And then in addition to that, what we'll be rolling out closer to kind of Q4 timeframe is the ability to actually trade on our platform with your brokerage or exchange of choice. So again, we are not a trading platform, but again, we're more so kind of a connector. So we want to make all this insights and this intelligence and videos and content actionable so that you can connect over very seamlessly over to your brokerage or exchange and go ahead and make your trade seamlessly.
Yeah. And do you kind of monetize through the access to the community or through the trades that what kind of, and has that changed at all in terms of how you kind of monetize your platform?
Yeah. So we're not monetizing through the actual trades themselves, but through access to the platform. So for these other third parties that have access to our platform, that's who's ultimately going to get charged. But just in general, our platform, a lot of it's free and open right now, but we make our money through advertisements. We make our money through in-app purchases. Again, when you actually subscribe to a creator's channel, we have a on-platform currency that you can use, and you can go ahead and place those purchases to subscribe to these individual channels. And then we also have a subscription that we're going to be rolling out eventually that's going to put a couple different elements, more premium elements underneath the paywall. But for now, everything's going to be free at least till year's end.
Yeah, amazing. And thinking about, just for more context for the audience, what's been exciting, not only about the traction you've seen this far, how many users do you have on the platform, what's particularly exciting about the partnerships you've created up to this point, but what's next also? What's been great up to this point, and what's next for TradeZing?
Yeah, well, as I just mentioned with the rollout of our apps, our app it was in a closed beta for about 4 months, and then we launched it at the end of February timeframe. It's been kind of now in a beta state, and we're in the process of also launching our web platform, as I mentioned, with Bitcoin 2023. We're actually going to be partners with them as one of the groups that's going to be syndicating all the content from their event. So all the different stages are going to get syndicated and streamed through our property, so people can watch essentially for free through our website and through our app. And then the big thing that we're also going to do more of a more formal announcement on is our events platform. So we want to kind of bubble up some of these big thought leaders across different industries and gear their content towards kind of a Gen Z millennial crowd. And again, that'll be available in our app and on our website as well. So these are some big touch points, big things for us, and super exciting as we kind of democratize and open up access to financial information.
Yeah. Thinking whether it's external or internal, what are some of the biggest risks that TradeZing faces today?
It's interesting. We kind of get grouped in a category that, like, if the market is failing or crypto's still stuck in a crypto winter, that we're doing bad, but not so much. We're actually on more so on the media end of things. So as long as there's kind of fluctuation and there's a story to be told, we actually do pretty well. Even with kind of, for example, FTX collapsing, that whole issue, and even with SVB, everything, these like big stories are great areas. Like, people are always like looking and scrambling for information and trying to get as quickly as possible so they make a decision. As long as that type of news is actually happening, it's actually good for us. So we're not like connected to the markets in that regard, where again, markets fluctuate. As long as there is fluctuation, it's actually good for us. If things are stagnant, then arguably that might hurt us a little bit. But
Sure.
we kind of sit on a different end, or on a different end of the spectrum in terms of.
Yeah, I love that. It's like the more drama, the better for TradeZing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's funny. I actually, my partner showed me your content on TikTok. So I was that's how I kind of learned about you guys,
Cool.
and it was super cool to see what kind of the information access has been giving people in terms of not only the opportunity to seek out the right information, but to, as a creator, not only improve the information you're giving, but also be valued for that information in a different way that really kind of feeds into this positive loop. Thinking about, if everything goes well, what's the long-term strategy?
Well, we're looking, our main goal right now is user acquisition. So we're trying to gain as many users as possible on our platform. We want people to use it, engage, interact, and really build these community. And at least I would say for the next couple of years, that's a core element of our platform is user engagement, boosting those metrics, and continue to develop and build tools for them. I would say with the addition of kind of AI, that's been kind of a new big initiative for us, is kind of make sure. Well, let me take a step back. With AI, you have to understand how to use that as a tool.
Sure.
And with the finance community, you have to kind of be careful with relying strictly on AI. And the same thing could be said as relying strictly on social. We've kind of we're kind of navigating and creating this almost kind of sweet spot of where you have kind of AI and human kind of intelligence balance each other. And kind of we represent that equilibrium on our platform. So that we're super excited about that, and continuing to kind of bake in a lot more AI powered intelligence throughout the entire platform.
Yeah. I always like the next section. I call it my founder FAQ. So I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions, and then we'll see where we go. First one I always like to break into is what's particularly hard about your job day to day?
I would say just the unknown and scheduling and timing. Timing is a commodity and I don't get a lot of, and it's something that I have to be really good at managing, just because I'm involved with a lot of different properties and ventures. And obviously, just like TradeZing, it's a baby. So again, I have to be available for it as a baby. I got to be on call 24/7 for whatever it needs.
Yeah. Thinking about taking a step back more philosophically, in terms of the relationship people have had, especially with financial content, and in the US in particular, we've had kind of a fragmented relationship with finance in terms of people having access to information and such, but see huge shift, COVID, and even post-COVID, people really engaging in financial content regularly. And kind of how have you seen that shift, and what are some positive effects that you've seen, and where are you particularly excited about in terms of how that's going to grow and impact not only your business, but people in general?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been an uptick in it. There's a lot more conversations around finance, and I think it's a lot of it's been fueled by the media in terms of just creating pouncing rather on these big buzzwords, whether it's NFTs and metaverse and AI. It's all these different things, and people are trying to understand how they impact their industries, and more specifically how they can capitalize it for kind of their own financial gain. So I think just the fact that there's a lot more talk around this industry, that helps us quite a bit at TradeZing to capture a lot of that. But yeah, we want to kind of encourage these conversations to happen. We just want to bring these conversations onto our platform.
Yeah. Thinking about Web3 and what's being built today, is there anything that you are particularly excited about in terms of keeping an eye on where it's going to be built, or what's going to be built in terms of whether it's a particular token, maybe it's a framework or a technology, or maybe it's a DApp, a DeFi protocol? What in particular have you seen in the market that you're particularly excited about that maybe everyone's not as aware of?
Yeah, I honestly, now over the last couple of months, it's more so I've been excited to kind of see who survives this downturn, the consolidation. I thought there was a lot of kind of fluff, as you call it, around crypto and just DeFi in general. And there's a lot of crazy valuations, and it just wasn't sustainable. But I think now companies, since they're kind of tightening their belts, and they can really kind of focus on kind of truly innovating products and do it kind of in a lean way. And I think that's exciting, because now we start to build sustainable businesses. So we get to see kind of who bubbles to the top versus who was just kind of in it to make a quick buck. And so that's something. In terms of specific technologies, I mean, again, I think there's a lot of value to a lot of the different technologies that have been built. I mean, it depends which ones, but I think with NFTs, for example, I don't think we're done with NFTs. I think there's been a cooling off period, but I think, again, that was necessary. I think now we'll start to see hopefully more of the utility aspect of how NFTs are used. And I'd like to honestly see the word NFT kind of slowly disappear, and people just see the technology being used, but not really understand or realize that it's like an NFT per se. It's just something that's kind of understood. This is just how stuff works.
Right.
But again, it all comes down to accessibility and education. And that's where, again, we as TradeZing kind of come into the picture of helping people understand these different topics and concepts and apply them to their day-to-day.
Yeah. Well, I guess rather than ask you what companies will boil to the top, what do you think in terms of how companies are built, operate, or how the relationship to their customer base? what will a successful company have that will kind of allow them to be a leader or at least get through this kind of challenging period with not only the bear market, but people having a little bit of a distrust with Web3 and kind of the whole community?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to focus. I think companies need to kind of really focus and try to do a little bit of everything. They need to kind of focus on kind of a core product
Yeah.
or core service and what they're offering. They need to still engage their community in a transparent way and use that engagement to kind of power their product's direction. And again, I still think consolidation will be kind of the key to success. I think you'll see companies going out and acquiring other companies
Yeah.
because it's going to be more beneficial to do that, less time spent. But I think, again, that consolidation piece is going to be critical,
Yeah.
at least kind of for where we're at right now, especially when capital is a little bit sparse and even lending is drying up a little bit, kind of in
Yeah.
the corporate landscape.
Yeah. Thinking about, you mentioned when you were building the product for TradeZing and kind of something about rolling out. And I was curious, I didn't catch it in particular. What was your kind of go-to-market strategy? Did you kind of slow grow through the communities you were already engaged with? Did you spend a bunch of marketing dollars on pay-per-click ads on Instagram and Facebook? What in particularly was, whether it was unique or what was successful in your strategy to reach your customer base, and how can other companies maybe even kind of learn from that experience?
Yeah, for us, it's going to the thought leaders within the community. So really for us, it's been going after the creators, investing time, effort, energy, money into getting it right for creators. Because again, if creators can't win on our platform or the experience is suffering, then how can we expect them to bring their followers over? It has to be an experience that's seamless for them and makes sense for them to live on our platform. So part of our go-to-market strategy has been going after specifically targeting creators, building those relationships and those inroads, listening to their feedback in terms of what they need and what they want on our platform, and allocating resources towards that. And then moving forward, again, there will be a time where we're going to spend large amounts of money on advertising. But again, at this stage in time, we're kind of doing it more of an organic approach.
Sure.
And kind of seeing what works, what doesn't work, and just kind of listening and collecting data. Ultimately, that's what it's about, collecting data so that we can make better informed decisions and also spend our money wiser and more efficiently. So we have higher levels of conversions when we go out and we do that more formal kind of advertising marketing component.
Yeah. Yeah. What's something that you're good at now as a founder that you wish you were better at early on?
Well, now managing a lot of different things at once, I feel I'm more suited and able to do that. And I think actually balance has been another big part of that. I've always, when I started my first companies, going through like high school and college, running those and kind of balancing that with also having a company I was running. Again, at that time I was doing like one company. Now I'm involved in like 5 or 6 different companies. So juggling all of that, keeping a social life, also having a newborn that was just born like 8 weeks ago, all that kind of thing with like the lack of sleep. There's like a lot of balancing that I've figured out.
Yeah.
With it. And I'm still figuring out, not perfect at it yet, but again, it's something that it takes work and you have to kind of practice it. But balance is super, super important if you want to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah. A lot of founders talk about prioritizing is the biggest headache and what to tackle first. And is there any, I'm just curious, is there any tools, like do you use Evernote? Do you use Airtable to kind of task manage? Are you a Trello board kind of guy? What in particular do you use to kind of prioritize and that's been helpful?
So I've tried probably almost every single like task management system that's out there. I still kind of go back to honestly just putting a lot of things I need to do on my Google Calendar.
Yeah.
That's it. Like very, very simple. I just kind of put things on there because again, I find just even the time involved to go into log into these systems and get notified, like I'm getting hit by so many different sources, like do this for different, it's kind of crazy. So I usually prioritize a lot of my stuff, my day to day, really through just building my agenda right in Google Calendar. And that's worked for me the best.
Yeah. I love that. I always like to ask this next question because I love how founders extract information out of anything that they ingest, whether it's early in your career or now. What books or people have influenced you the most?
So there was a professor at the university that I went to school at, SUNY Albany, and he was in the business department, and he was part of he had ran this small business development offshoot of kind of the SUNY Albany campus. And I would intern there. Well, I would intern there and I was actually running my other business and I was helping other people actually build their business plans. So I was supposed to be an intern working there, like learning on how to build the business plans. But I was actually, because I already had a business, I was teaching all these other clients of this group on how to actually put together business plans and raise capital and do all these things. So that was really interesting to me. And again, his name was Bill Brigham. He like took a liking to me and really kind of put me into a lot of really interesting opportunities. He kind of brought me into one of his MBA classes where actually as a freshman, I actually gave like a whole presentation talking about entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So I was giving these really unique opportunities to kind of show what I was doing at a really young age, which I think was also inspiring for a lot of people, but also gave me a lot of confidence and motivation to continue to kind of press forward and do other things. So definitely kind of as a mentor, he played a big role in my life in that respect.
Yeah. And what's one piece of advice that you would give to founders, something that they can implement in their day-to-day, whether when they're first kind of on going from 0 to 1, what in particular was valuable for you kind of when you're kind of growing your company from that point and building? What's one piece of advice you'd give another founder?
Especially when you're just starting off, be very selective in terms of who you surround yourself with, in terms of either another co-founder or other first hires and stuff like that, because they're essentially going to create and shape the culture of what you're building. And if that's like really super inefficient, or there's some bad actors in that place, it's going to screw you up. So regardless of how good your idea is or how fast you want to move, if you're being held back by a co-founder or by the employees on your team, again, you just have to be very careful. So again, that kind of sets up the runway for you in the trajectory. You just want to make sure, again, you have a good team that motivates you, and ultimately you bring on people that are smarter than you. That's how it's supposed to work. But still, again, you are still the CEO. You're the founder or co-founder. It's got to be your vision that you carry through, and you got to stay true to that.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier, but what are you particularly focused on right now? Is it acquiring new customers, fundraising, hiring? What's on the top of the agenda?
So we're doing a little bit of everything. We are fundraising. So, what we wanted to do is we first wanted to get to market. So we wanted to get a product out. We wanted to hit that milestone. We're very milestone objective driven. So in this case, we wanted to get to market. That was our big thing. Get to market so that we have an app product that works. Now we can go out and we feel like we can go raise an institutional raise. So before that, we were just funding it internally ourselves. But now that we're in the market, we're going out right now presently, and we're doing our roadshow, going out and trying to bring in some venture capital. But again, the landscape changes. You have to understand where we were a year ago is different than where we are today. So you have to kind of raise appropriately. But that aside goes hand in hand. So fundraising also goes hand in hand with user engagement and acquiring people for the platform to use it. So the more people we acquire, the easier it's going to be to actually fundraise. So these are all things we have to kind of work on simultaneously.
Yeah, I love that. Last little bit is I always like to make sure we didn't leave anything on the table. I know we're going close to the end of the episode, but is there any question I didn't ask you that I should have, or anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up? Last little bit. Did we leave anything on the table, Jordan?
No, I think we hit on all the big points. I would just tell people to check out TradeZing.com and check out our coverage from Bitcoin coming up, and just definitely go on, get your account and register and start communicating and creating content.
Amazing, Jordan. You beat me to it. We heard about where we can find more information on TradeZing, but where can we find more information on you? Give us your plug, LinkedIn's, Twitter's. Where can we find a chat or at least be a fan and support what you're working on at TradeZing?
Yeah, my handle just across the board on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, it's just at Jordan Edelson.
Perfect. Awesome, Jordan. It's been such a pleasure not only learning about your early career as an entrepreneur, but where you kind of brought, what you kind of brought to TradeZing in terms of the idea of rewarding this amazing community that's giving great financial advice, giving people access to it to not only become more familiar, but more active. It's incredible to see not only what engagement and where you are today, but where you're going to lead to. So I hope you enjoyed yourself today on Behind Company Lines, and thank you again for being a guest today.
Thank you.
Of course.